The cold wind blew through the great hall of the High Court. 2 alien girls stood in the center, their hands tied with glowing chains. Around them stood tall alien guards, faces cold and silent. A loud voice echoed through the hall. "You are guilty," the judge declared. "You disobeyed the command of the High Council. You broke ancient laws. You showed pride and defiance. For this, you will be punished." Zira, the older girl, lifted her chin. Her golden eyes burned with anger. "We did what was right," she said. "You are afraid of change, afraid of truth." The judge slammed his staff on the ground. "Enough. You will be sent to a primitive world, a place of dirt and weakness. You will live among humans until you learn humility. Or die trying." The crowd gasped. Some smiled. Others whispered. Earth was a punishment worse than prison. Beside Zira stood Eloya, her younger sister. Her eyes were wide with fear, her hands shaking. She had only helped Zira escape a forced royal marriage. For that, she too was punished. Before they could speak again, a bright light surrounded them. The chains tightened. The floor vanished. They were gone. The sound of birds and wind filled the air. Zira opened her eyes. She lay in thick green grass, a bright sky above. Trees stretched tall around her. She sat up fast, still breathing hard. Eloya groaned beside her, holding her head. "Where are we?" Eloya asked weakly. Zira stood slowly. Earth. The teleportation had dropped them deep in a forest. Their elegant robes were now dirty. Their hands were free, but their powers gone. The council had taken their abilities before sending them here. "We need food, water, shelter," Zira said. "Stay close." They began walking. Birds watched. From the trees, strange sounds came from the bushes. Everything felt wild and dangerous. Suddenly, a branch snapped nearby. Zira spun around. "Who's there?" No answer. She picked up a sharp stick, ready to fight. Eloya stood behind her, nervous. Another sound closer this time. Then a figure stepped out from the trees. It was a human man. He looked around 30 years old, tall, with short dark hair and tired eyes. He wore old earth clothes, jeans, and a jacket. His hands were raised in peace. "Well, this is new," he said with a small smile. "Are you angels or aliens?" Zira pointed the stick at him. "Stay back." The man didn't move. "Easy, I live nearby. Saw the sky flash. Thought maybe a meteor fell. But I guess it was you strange girls in silver robes." "We don't need help," Zira said sharply. Eloya stepped forward. "Wait, Zira. Maybe he can tell us where we are." The man shrugged. "You're in Pine Hollow, North America. Planet Earth, in case you didn't know." Zira looked him up and down. "You live alone?" "Yeah," he said. "Name's Jake. I was a soldier once. Now I fix things, grow food, help animals." Zira didn't trust him, but Eloya's eyes lit up at the word, help. Jake saw their tired faces. "You look hungry. I've got food, clean water. You can follow me or keep wandering until night falls and the wolves come out." Eloya looked at Zira. "Please," Zira hesitated. Then slowly nodded. Jake led them to a small cabin made of wood. It sat by a quiet stream. Chickens clucked nearby. Inside, it was warm and simple. A fire burned in the hearth. He gave them bread and soup. They ate fast, too hungry to speak. After eating, Zira sat by the door, still alert. Eloya explored the room, touching the strange earth items. Jake poured himself tea. "So, where are you two from, really?" Neither girl answered. He raised an eyebrow. "All right, you don't trust me. That's fine. But I think fate dropped you here for a reason." That night, while Elia slept on the couch, Zira slipped outside. The forest was quiet, moonlight falling on the grass. She stared up at the stars. Her home was somewhere out there, but far, far away. Suddenly, A growl broke the silence. Zira turned and saw glowing eyes. A wild earth beast, large, 4 legs, sharp teeth, leaped at her from the dark. Zira dodged, but it swiped her arm. She fell, bleeding. The beast moved in again. A loud noise. The creature dropped, motionless. Zira looked up in shock. Jake stood behind her, holding a smoking weapon. His eyes were calm. "I said the wolves come out at night," he said. Then held out a hand. "You okay?" Zira stared at him, confused. No one had ever risked their life for her before. She took his hand. Back inside the cabin, Iloya woke from the noise. She ran to Zira, who was now bandaged and silent. Jake sat by the fire again, drinking tea. But Iloya's eyes widened. She had touched Jake's hand earlier. And in that moment, she had felt something strange inside him. Something not fully human. The firelight flickered across the cabin walls. Zira sat on the edge of the bed, her arm bandaged, her eyes locked on the man across the room. Jake sat with his back to her, sharpening a hunting knife. Outside, the forest was quiet, but her heart was not. "Why did you save me?" she asked, breaking the silence. Jake didn't look up. "Would you have let me die?" Zira frowned. No one had ever asked her that before. Morning came with golden sunlight pouring through the wooden windows. The smell of cooked eggs filled the cabin. Iloya sat at the table, smiling softly as Jake handed her a plate. Zira stayed near the door, arms crossed. "You really eat these?" she asked, pointing at the eggs. Jake chuckled. "Yep, chickens lay them, we cook them. Earth might be strange to you, but we survive just fine." Iloya looked at Zira. "We should learn. We can't keep living like enemies here." Zira didn't answer. Her pride still burned. Jake poured water into 3 cups. "So, still not ready to tell me where you're from?" "We're from a place you wouldn't understand," Zira said sharply. Jake leaned forward. "Try me." Zira opened her mouth, but Iloya grabbed her arm. "Don't." There was a long silence. Then Jake said something unexpected. "I don't care if you're from another planet or another galaxy. I care if you're good people. That's all that matters here." Iloya's eyes softened. Zira looked away. Later that day, Jake took them outside. The sun was warm and the air was full of bird songs. He handed each of them small tools. "We fix the fence, or the deer come in and eat the crops," he said. Zira raised an eyebrow. "You expect us to do human farm work?" Jake smirked. "I expect you to eat tonight, so yes." Iloya laughed and picked up her tool. Zira growled under her breath, but followed. They worked side by side. Jake showed them how to tie the wires, how to hammer the posts into the ground. Zira struggled at first, but her strong hands soon got the rhythm. "You learn fast," Jake said. "I learn everything fast," she replied. Iloya giggled. "Even how to be stubborn." Zira gave her a sharp look. But for a moment, just a small one, she smiled. As evening fell, Jake built a fire in the yard. The girls sat with him, wrapped in warm blankets. He handed them roasted vegetables and bread. "I was a soldier once," Jake said, staring at the flames. "I saw things that changed me, lost people I loved, so I came here. Quiet life, no wars." Iloya listened closely. "You were alone all this time?" Jake nodded. "Better alone than broken." Zira looked at him with curiosity now, not judgment. Then a sound. Soft, like a buzzing. Zira turned her head sharply. "What was that?" Jake stood. "Probably just a zzzzzt." A red beam flashed across the fire. It missed Jake by inches and burned into the dirt. The girls jumped to their feet. Zira's voice dropped cold. "That's alien tech." A shape moved between the trees, small, flying, a round drone. Scanning them with a blinking red light, Jake grabbed a metal rod and threw it fast, smashing the drone. It exploded with a soft pop. Iloya's face went pale. They found us. Jake's voice was calm. Who? Zyra looked at him now with serious eyes. We don't have time to explain. Someone dangerous is coming. Someone who doesn't leave survivors. Jake nodded slowly. Then I guess we have to prepare. Zyra stepped forward. Why are you helping us? Jake looked her in the eyes. Because no one helped me when I needed it. That night, Zyra sat alone on the porch, staring at the sky. She had been sent to Earth to suffer, to learn humility, to be broken, but now she felt something else. A strange warmth, and a strange fear, because for the first time in her life, someone saw her not as a weapon or a criminal, but as a person, and that terrified her more than any hunter. Zyra woke to the smell of something warm. For a moment, she thought it was a dream until she opened her eyes and saw Jake, cooking over the fire again, humming softly to himself. She had lived in castles, walked on metal floors, and flown warships. But this small wooden cabin, this smell of bread and smoke, it felt more like home than anything she'd ever known, and that scared her. Outside, the wind blew gently through the trees. Birds chirped, and sunlight painted golden patches on the fazan. Forest floor. Aloya stood barefoot in the grass, watching a butterfly land on her finger. She giggled. Jake stepped beside her, handing her a small wooden box. What's this? She asked. He smiled. Seeds. If you plant them right, they grow into flowers. Aloya opened the box carefully, like it was treasure. Our world doesn't have flowers like yours. Jake looked into her eyes. Maybe this world has other things you've never known too. Behind them, Zyra watched from the porch. Her hands were crossed, but her eyes told a different story. She was beginning to feel something dangerous. Peace. That afternoon, Jake showed them how to use a simple human tool called a hammer. Zyra laughed the first time. Aloya hit her own finger. You're supposed to hit the nail, not yourself. Aloya stuck out her tongue. I'm trying, Jake grinned. That's the spirit. They were fixing the chicken fence, painting the side wall of the cabin, and learning to carry water from the nearby stream. Zyra, once a warrior princess, was now picking tomatoes from a small garden. And for the first time, she didn't hate it. In fact, she liked the way Jake said, thank you. She liked the way Aloya laughed again. She liked the quiet. That night, the girls sat by the fire. Again, Jake had made something sweet with berries and honey. Aloya licked her fingers, smiling like a child. Zyra asked Jake a question she never thought she'd ask. Why don't you live with your own kind? Jake looked into the fire. Because sometimes your own kind hurt you the most. There was silence. Zyra spoke again, softer this time. Is that why you hide here? Jake looked at her. Maybe, or maybe I was waiting for something, or someone. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. But before either could say more, a cold wind blew through the open window. Aloya shivered. I feel like something is watching us. Jake stood and checked the door. Probably just animals. Zyra didn't agree. Her hand slid to the small blade Jake had given her earlier. She had survived many battles, and her warrior senses told her danger was getting closer. Late at night, while the cabin slept, a red light blinked in the forest. Another drone. Smaller. Silent. It scanned the cabin windows, clicked twice, then flew back into the darkness. Far above Earth, a ship received the signal. Inside, a figure growled low. She's alive, the voice said. Prepare to land. Back on Earth, Zyra woke from a nightmare. She had dreamed of the punishment hall, the chains, the betrayal. She walked outside, into the cold night air. Jake followed a few minutes later. Bad dreams? Zyra didn't look at him. I don't have dreams, I have memories. Jake stood beside her, silent for a while. Then he said, you know, pain can break you. Or it can make you stronger. Zyra looked at him sharply. You speak like a warrior. Jake smiled. Maybe I was one once, before I lost everything. Zira looked at the stars. We lost everything too. Jake's voice dropped low. Maybe we all came here to find something new. Inside, Eloya watched them through the window. Her hand touched the glass, and her heart beat fast. Not just from fear, but from something else. Hope. The birds had stopped singing. That was the first sign. The forest, once full of life, had gone silent. No wind, no sound, just the heavy stillness of something. Watching, Zira stepped out of the cabin, her eyes scanning the trees. Her fingers gripped the blade hidden under her shirt. Eloya peeked through the curtain, heart pounding. Then a voice spoke from the woods. Low, cold, familiar. Zira of House Carinth. You thought you could hide on this broken world? Zira froze. Her past had found her. From the shadows, a tall figure stepped forward. He wore black alien armor, glowing with red veins. His face was hidden behind a helmet shaped like a skull. But Zira didn't need to see his face. She knew that voice. General Varnak, once the royal hunter. Now, the council's executioner. Jake stepped outside, holding his old rifle. Friend of yours? He asked carefully. Zira didn't look at him. Her eyes locked on the hunter. He's here to take us back, she said. Dead, if needed. Varnak laughed. You broke a sacred union, Zira. You insulted the throne, and your sister. She helped you escape. Both of you are traitors. Eloya stepped out, shaking. We didn't want war. We just wanted freedom. Varnak pointed a finger at her. And now you'll learn. There is no freedom for the weak. Suddenly he raised his arm. A weapon grew from his armor. He fired. Boom. Jake tackled Eloya to the ground as the shot hit a tree, exploding in flames. Zira leapt forward, her blade slicing through the air. But Varnak blocked it with his armored forearm. You still fight like a royal, he mocked. But you're not one anymore. The battle moved fast. Zira dodged lasers, cutting low and fast. But she was slower on Earth. Her powers still blocked. Jake shot from cover, hitting Varnak once, but the hunter barely flinched. Eloya pulled Jake back behind a fallen log. We have to run. Zira shouted. Go, I'll hold him, Jake growled. Not a chance. But Varnak turned his weapon again, aiming at Eloya this time. Zira screamed. Nitrogen monoxide. She threw her blade. It hit Varnak's shoulder. Sparking, he roared and vanished in a flash of light, teleporting away. Silence returned. Smoke rose from the burning tree. Birds still didn't sing. Jake helped Zira to her feet. She was bleeding from her arm, her breathing heavy. You okay? He asked. She nodded. But her eyes were full of something Jake hadn't seen before. Fear. Not for herself. For Loya. Later, inside the cabin. Jake patched her up while Eloya sat by the fire, holding a blanket around her. He'll be back, Zira said softly. Jake looked at her. Then we fight. Zira met his eyes. You don't understand. Varnak doesn't stop. He doesn't sleep. He hunts until the target is dead. Jake smirked. Sounds familiar, so do I. Zira's lips almost curved into a smile. Almost. That night, Eloya knocked softly on Jake's door. He opened it, surprised. She stepped in slowly. I wanted to say thank you, she whispered. For saving me, twice, Jake nodded. You don't need to thank me. Eloya looked down. You're different. You don't treat us like weapons or criminals. Jake sighed. Maybe because I know what it's like to be treated like that. She stepped closer. Her voice was quiet now. Do you ever feel like, no matter what you do, your past won't let you go? Jake looked her in the eyes. All the time. For a moment, the room felt still again. But not because of fear, because of connection. In her room, Zira sat alone, staring at her blade. She had fought wars. She had escaped death. But now, her biggest battle wasn't with Via Rnak. It was inside her heart. And the most dangerous question echoed in her mind. Why does that human matter so much to me? The rain came down without warning, soft at first, then heavy. Zyra stood in it, eyes closed, letting it soak her clothes, her hair, her skin. She didn't move. She didn't blink. Because for the first time in her life, she didn't feel strong inside. The cabin, Aloya whispered to Jake. She's remembering everything now. Jake looked out the window at Zyra and said, "Good. Maybe it's time she finally lets it out." A log cracked in the fire as Zyra stepped back inside. Her clothes dripped water across the wooden floor, but no one said a word. She sat by the fire silent. Aloya brought her a blanket. Zyra didn't take it. Then she spoke. "You want to know what I did?" Jake looked at her. "Only if you want to tell." Zyra's voice was calm but sharp like a blade. "My father was the warlord of House Carinth. A powerful man, feared, respected. He wanted me to marry another warlord's son, an alliance to control more systems. I refused." She looked up at Jake. "I told him I didn't want to belong to anyone, that I wanted to make my own path." Aloya sat beside her, holding her hand. Zyra continued. "They called me a traitor, said I dishonored the family. But I didn't care. I ran. Aloya came with me." Jake's eyes didn't blink. He just listened. "I thought we could escape to a quiet moon, start over, but they sent Varnak, the hunter. The punishment was never to teach me. It was to break me." Her hands trembled now, "to throw me into the dirt. Make me beg to return, or die." Jake slowly stood and took a step forward. "But you didn't beg, and you didn't die." Zyra finally looked at him, eyes burning. "Not yet." Later that night, Aloya sat on the floor, brushing her long silver hair. Jake sat at the table, cleaning his old rifle. The cabin was quiet, but the air was full of tension. Something was coming. Zyra sharpened her blade. The sound of metal on stone echoed like a countdown. Jake finally said, "You know, I think Earth is exactly where you were meant to be." Zyra gave a small laugh. "As punishment?" Jake shook his head. "As rebirth." Suddenly, a soft beep. Aloya stood fast. Her hand moved to her pocket. She pulled out a small round device, one she thought had been deactivated. It blinked red. Zyra's eyes widened. "No." Jake moved forward. "What is that?" "It's a signal tracker," Aloya said, her voice shaking. "We still had one. It's been active this whole time." Zyra stood in shock. "That's how Varnak found us. That's how he'll find us again." Jake's face darkened. "Then we don't wait this time." The next day, Jake led them deeper into the woods, to a place even wilder than before. Hidden under a moss-covered hill was something neither of them expected. A rusted metal hatch. Zyra raised an eyebrow. "What is this?" Jake smiled faintly. "A bunker, built it years ago, for when the world goes mad." Inside it was dark but dry, full of tools, supplies, old weapons. Zyra picked up a long-barreled gun. It felt strange in her hands, but also familiar. Aloya touched the wall. "It's not a palace, but it's safe." Jake looked at Zyra. "If he comes, we make a stand." Zyra didn't answer. Instead, she walked to a dusty corner, sat down, and for the first time in years, she cried. Not from pain, not from fear. From relief, because someone finally believed her, someone finally stood beside her. And it wasn't a warrior, or a leader, or a soldier. It was a simple human man who didn't walk away. Far above Earth, Varnak stared at a screen. The tracker's signal blinked stronger now. He smiled behind his mask. "You can't run forever, Zyra. And this time, the human dies first." The sun didn't rise that morning. Thick black clouds covered the sky like a warning. Zyra stood at the edge of a cliff, wind pulling at her cloak. Her eyes searched the sky for a sign. She could feel it in her bones. Varnak was coming. But this time, she wouldn't run. This time she would fight. Deep in the bunker, Jake laid out the weapons one by one. Guns, knives, traps, everything he had. Saved from his old life. Zyra entered, her face calm but focused. Jake looked up. If we do this, we do it smart. Zyra nodded. We fight like exiles, not royals, not soldiers, survivors. Eloya entered behind her, holding wires and metal. Parts. I made a few surprises for Varnak. Jake raised an eyebrow. You made traps? Eloya grinned. I watched you. I learned fast. Zyra placed her hand on Eloya's shoulder. You're not the same girl who landed here. Eloya looked her in the eyes. Neither are you. That night, they trained. Zyra showed Jake how to move silently like an assassin. Jake taught Zyra how to fire earth weapons, how to reload, how to aim under pressure. Eloya placed tiny hidden bombs around the forest, setting wires and triggers. For hours the woods echoed with fire, metal, and sweat. Jake wiped his brow. Reminds me of war, Zyra nodded. This is war. Later, they sat by a small fire inside the bunker. Zyra sharpened her blade slowly. Jake looked at her hands. You know what's funny? She glanced up. Jake said, I've met soldiers, killers, even monsters. But you carry more pain than all of them, and yet you still stand. Zyra's voice was low. Pain teaches you who you really are. Jake looked at her. Then who are you? She paused. Then whispered, someone worth fighting for. Suddenly, the sky lit up red. A thunderous sound shook the earth. They ran outside. A dark ship tore through the clouds like a blade, burning and massive. Zyra's voice dropped cold. He's here. Jake turned to them. Positions. We hold the line. No matter what. Eloya ran to her hidden triggers. Zyra strapped on her blade and picked up her rifle. Her heart was calm, for the first time in her life. She wasn't fighting for pride. She was fighting for someone who gave her a reason to live. The forest went quiet. Then, footsteps. Heavy, slow, measured. From the smoke stepped Varnak. His black armor gleamed. His red eyes burned, but he wasn't alone. 6 more soldiers stepped out behind him. All armed, all ready to kill. Jake cursed under his breath. We're outnumbered. Zyra stepped forward. We're never outmatched. She raised her rifle, and all hell broke loose. The woods exploded with noise. Traps snapped, lasers fired, grenades blew craters into the ground. Zyra moved like lightning, firing, rolling, slashing. Jake picked off targets from behind a fallen log. Eloya detonated bombs from her hiding place, sending 2 soldiers flying into the trees. But Varnak didn't stop. He moved through the fire like a shadow, heading straight for the bunker. Zyra saw him. No! She screamed, chasing him. Jake followed her. We end this together. Inside the bunker, Varnak smashed through the wall. Sparks flew. He turned just as Zyra slammed into him with full force, knocking him back. Their weapons clashed. Steel against alien tech. Fury against control. Va. Rnak grinned. You're stronger than before, Zyra growled. Because now, I have something to lose. She stabbed forward, and for the first time, Varnak bled. Zyra stood over him, breath sharp, blade shaking in her hand. Varnak was on his knees, blood dripping from the crack in his armor. His red eyes flickered. You were just a spoiled child, pretending to be strong, he spat. Zyra pressed the tip of her blade to his chest. No, she said softly. I was strong the day I chose peace, and you called it weakness. Varnak opened his mouth to speak, but behind her, Jake raised his gun. Don't, Zyra said, stopping him. Let him crawl away in shame. And then she walked away. Outside, the forest smoked. Trees were burned, the ground torn, but the bunker still stood. Eloya rushed to her sister and hugged her tight, her face streaked with tears and dirt. I thought I lost you. Zyra held her close. You never will. Jake limped toward them, bleeding but alive. You sure know how to throw a party. He joked weakly. Zira smiled for real this time. Only invite the worst guests. They stood there, 3 broken, bruised souls. But something in the air had changed for the first time since they crashed on Earth. They didn't feel like exiles, they felt like a family. Hours later, as the stars returned to the sky, Eloya sat by the river with Jake. I always thought our punishment was exile, she said, staring at the water. But maybe ... it was a gift. Jake nodded. A second chance. Zira stood near the edge of the woods, watching the stars above. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said aloud, more to herself than anyone, "They sent me here too. Be broken. But Earth didn't break me." She looked back at the cabin. At Jake. At Eloya. It made me whole. A few days passed. The bunker was repaired. The land slowly healed. Nature, like people, always finds a way. Jake built a new room onto the cabin. One for Eloya, one for Zira. Eloya planted the flower seeds Jake had given her. Bright petals now peeked through the soil. Zira, once a warrior of space, now learned how to fix a roof and plant carrots. One afternoon, Jake handed her a small object, a wooden charm he carved with his hands. Zira turned it over. It was shaped like a shield, simple, strong. "For you," Jake said. "So you always remember you don't fight alone anymore." She looked at him, something deep in her eyes. Something warmer than fire, brighter than stars. "Thank you," she whispered. Far above Earth, the alien council received Varnak's return. Broken, silent. He dropped his weapon before them. She refused to die. The human protected her. One elder leaned forward. "Then we must destroy the human world." "But," the High Seer raised a hand. "No, let them be. If Earth gave birth to someone who could tame Zira of House Carinth, perhaps it is not a weak planet after all." And the case was closed. Forever. Back on Earth, rain fell again, soft this time. Jake and Zira stood under the porch roof, watching Eloya dance barefoot in the grass. Laughing, Zira turned to Jake. "You said once you lost everything," she said. Jake nodded. "I did." She looked into his eyes. "So did I, but somehow, we found each other." Jake reached out and took her hand, and for the first time since, she was exiled, banished, and hunted. Zira smiled, not as a warrior, but as a woman finally free. They came to Earth as punishment, but found love, peace, and the only thing they never expected, a place to truly call home.